I'm happiest in the saddle.
A fellow sportsman.
I am an FBI agent.
Great Scott!
What do you say we cut the chit-chat? A-hole.
Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria.
Come with me if you want to live.
Hello, and welcome to Retro Ramble. I'm Charlie McGee.
I'm George McGee.
And this time, ladies and gentlemen, we have two esteemed guests, two gentlemen that you could argue are the origin, you could say, George, of Retro Ramble. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. They are partly responsible for this podcast because they were very influential in the films that we grew up with.
So you've heard their names before, I guess, age before beauty. Welcome, the Glendinings. Hello, John. How you doing?
Hi, Charlie. Hi, George. Doing great, thank you.
And joining us also is your younger brother, James. How you doing, James?
Very well. Absolute pleasure to join you on this podcast this evening. I've been a fan in the background, and it's really a joy now to be a part of it.
Well, we've talked about it. We've threatened it for many years. I remember chatting with John. I thought it was only a couple of years ago, but then John was like, no, that was pre-COVID, of like me drunkenly saying to John as you were driving me back home, like, we've got to get you on the podcast, buddy. Everyone's asking for it. Everyone's asking for it.
I think I may have even had hair back then.
But we are thrilled to have the brothers Glendinning are joining the brothers McGee. We would all, I think it'll come up today. Our parents were an influence getting us into film, but the real influence was each other. We watched everything you've heard on Retro Ramble. The classic episodes have been films we watched with these guys. Friends from Home are both of our parents. They still live. We may have run away, but our parents still live in the village.
Still live on the same street.
Yeah, on the same street. Yeah. And we were literally neighbors. I think it's worth pointing out is that we were long distance neighbors for a long time. But before that, we were jump over the fence neighbors. If you've not listened to an episode before, what have you been doing with your life? This is our 100th episode. God. But if you have listened before, you know what to expect. George, are we going to give anybody a sort of warning to this episode?
Yeah, I think we've got to do the usual housekeeping. So Retro Ramble is a light-hearted look back at the films of the 80s and 90s, the films that Charlie and we are brothers, and it's the films that we grew up with. There'll be some trivia. There'll probably be some bad impressions. And it's just looking back at what made those films that we grew up with great. Have they been remade? Have they been turned into a Netflix series? And just what makes them tick in general. So there will be spoilers from the very off. There might be some swearing, but we'll try and keep that to a minimum. But yes, just enjoy the show.
And I think we should probably announce what we're covering. It's Christmas! So we are covering a Christmas movie of choice. Is that right?
It's a big movie with the McGee family, but I know it's also a big Christmas choice with the Glendinnings as well. Is that right?
Indeed, yeah, and I remember watching it with both of you in the past as well, and it's a regular now. Every December it comes out.
Well, I think that's how we communicate around Christmas, James. It's usually in quotes from this film, rather tthan like, how are you, what are your plans for Christmas? Like, real nice, Clark, real nice.
You know you're dealing with like a good friend when they just send you a 2-worded text of shit is full. Okay, so have you both watched it? John, have you watched this? I take you in preparation.
I've seen it a couple of times in the past. It's 10
minutes.
We kind of, it's the start of our Christmas period. Is the first watch of this film in the festive season. That's how I know. Right, the run to Christmas is starting because I'll watch this.
That's what I was going to ask. I was like, do you guys, well, a question for both of you, do you watch it every single year without fail?
Yeah, and I would say I might not hit 10, watch it 10 times, but definitely we're in high single figures of how many times I watch it during the Christmas period.
Oh, wow. Okay. James, what about you? Do you is it a regular watch?
It is, but it has also become one of those films that can just be part of the background entertainment while you're doing other Christmas festive things like decorating the tree, and you'll just have the film running in the background. And because you know it so well, you don't need to sit engaged watching it. It's just having the background noise of the laughter and jokes that you know so well occurring.
Yeah, I'm glad you put it like that, because I feel like that film is like that it is while you're getting your Christmas stuff together, put this on. It's like, because I think the problem is you put on something like a film that maybe is, say, Lethal Weapon or Die Hard, other Christmas films, which we'll talk about Christmas films and which aren't later. But like sometimes you want to put it on and it's like, it's like A Wonderful Life. Just put it on. It's Christmassy. It's like music. It's like, put on Bing Crosby. But this is one of those films. So I'm glad you said that, James, because I kind of was like, sometimes I want to watch this film and sometimes I just want to have it on in the background. So George, this is a John Hughes joint. What's the year? Is it 88, 89?
89.
Not enough shoulder pads to be any earlier in the 80s. But a good, nice dose of male misogyny. So, without any further ado, let's hit the episode. It's Christmas Vacation. This was which number was this in the franchise? Was this the fourth?
Third.
The third. So by this point, we'd had European, European, and then
Vacation, then European Vacation, then Christmas Vacation.
And this. Okay, great. Okay, strap in, boys. We're going back to 1989. Here it is, Christmas Vacation.
Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la.
After vacationing across America and throughout Europe,
Take it, Russ.
this holiday season, the Griswolds are going to play it safe.
Clark, we're stuck under a truck.
Oops. They're staying at home.
I give you the Griswold family Christmas tree.
Hope you're not getting sap all over your sweater, Clark.
All Clark wants is a quiet, old-fashioned Christmas.
Sorry. Got a little knot here. You can work on that.
What he's going to get is the gift that keeps on living.
Merry Christmas.
His family.
We didn't come to impose.
Oh, hell, there's plenty of room.
Do you sleep with your brother? Do you know how sick and twisted that is, Mom? Well, I'm sleeping with your father.
Have you got a kiss for me?
You'd better take a rain check on that, Art. He's got a lip fungus they ain't identified yet.
So genuinely moving, more truly uplifting.
Can I show you something?
This year, let Chevy Chase light up your holidays. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
That thing had 9 lives. She just spent them all.
So, George, are we going to bore John and James to death with Production Chat Island? Have they got any Production Chat nuggets? Is there much?
Thankfully, because we have a couple of guests on and there'll be, a fair bit chatting, in this case, there isn't much production chat. So it's a very short journey to Production Island or on the Production Chat train. But as you mentioned before, Charlie, so yeah, this John Hughes, obviously huge influence on a lot of 80s films, writer and director. I think he wrote both the first 2 Vacation movies, so Vacation and European Vacation. And he wrote Christmas Vacation was actually based on a short story of his that had been published in the National Lampoon magazine. And when it came round to who was going to direct it, John Hughes himself was busy on post-production of Uncle Buck at the time. So he had to bow out. Originally, he had lined up Chris Columbus, and Chris Columbus was going to take it on. And he met with Chevy Chase. And despite being desperate for work and desperate for the paycheck, he turned to John Hughes and said, I can't work with Chevy Chase. I'm going to bow out. So Chris Columbus would then go on to something else because John Hughes was like, oh, well, I've got another Christmas idea. Maybe you could work on that. And that was Home Alone. So okay. Chris Columbus things turned out all right for him because Home Alone was a massive smash hit. Whereas I think Christmas Vacation was a modest hit that has obviously, continued to be a beloved Christmas movie. But in terms of when they came out at the time, Home Alone was a riot, box office behemoth. So they brought in a first-time director, a guy called Jeremiah Chechnik, and just like the old sort of background of a lot of 80s directors we've talked about, he cut his teeth on, I think, music videos. So, but he met with John Hughes, he met with Chevy Chase, and he managed to convince them he was the man for the job. And I think it's safe to say, he does a pretty good job of this. So the only other sort of production trivia I would say is that being a Christmas film, they were naturally filming it in the summer, and it was on the Warner Brothers backlot in California. So it's quite warm. I can't work this out. I've tried to pin this down in my research, but I'm not sure if it's the Griswolds' house itself or it's Todd and Margot's house, but one of them is the same house from Lethal Weapon, is the Murtaugh's house, because it was filmed on the Warner Brothers backlot. And Chevy Chase even said when they turned up on set, the toilet from Lethal Weapon 2 was still on the front lawn when they rocked up. So it must have been quite bizarre for the cast, filming in the middle of summer. But then all the winter sequences, the opening when they're getting the Christmas tree and the sledging bit, that was filmed up in Colorado in Breckenridge. And just sort of sod's law, they all traveled up, all the production up to Breckenridge. There was no snow. They worked out all this logistics of shipping in snow with lorries. And just as the lorries were about to turn up, it dumped snow for 3 days solid. And they had 10 foot of snow. So yeah, that's essentially the quick whip round tour of how this film came to be.
Well, let's hit it over to the guys. So obviously the Griswolds are a very big staple of the McGee family. I think Dad saw a lot of our family in it, or other families that he might have been in business with. So it was kind of a catch-all. So I mean, we've watched all of them to death. Because I know this film is important to you guys, but what about the rest of the franchise? Were you into it at all?
I was, yeah, because I remember the first two coming out as well. Right. I think, and yeah, being the oldest, yeah, obviously. So yeah, I love them, and I still watch them all now. Still really enjoy the comedy, and I think it's just the fact it's easy watching. That's what I've enjoyed about all the National Lampoons and you can, like you say, you can relate it to what happens in everyday family life. That's what I think they capture quite well, so it just provides good comedy and easy, light-hearted watching.
What about you, James?
I have to say it was different for me. The one that stuck out for me was Christmas Vacation. I've seen the previous ones, but they were never big features for me. There's a lot of films around that era, certainly the John Hughes ones, whether it be, Uncle Buck or Great Outdoors or Planes, Trains, Automobiles. I remember watching all of them, but the Griswold ones, not particularly. It was more Xmas Vacation. Then, of course, because I love that, I've ended up watching Vegas Vacation afterwards just a few times just for comedy value. But I'm not a Griswold fan. I'm more of an Xmas Vacation fan.
Nice. Well, it's funny. I would say I haven't watched a European Vacation in quite some time, but I rewatched the original Vacation, and that's a little bit problematic in terms of some of the comedy has aged very poorly.
Slightly misogynist.
A little bit misogynist, a little bit racially insensitive. When they I think they break down in Detroit or something. But in this, I think it might just be me, but yes, it's a little bit misogynist. But I think generally, a lot of the jokes are at the family's expense. Whereas on the other vacation movies, obviously, it's their road trips. So it's usually at the expense of other people, whether it is another city or another country. Whereas, yeah,
racial stereotypes.
Yeah, racial stereotypes and the like. Whereas I feel in this, it's very much, and probably arguably a reason why it's probably most beloved or rewatched out of the Griswolds films is it's so relatable that, in terms of that time at Christmas, in terms of, those relationships.
We'll have everyone over. It'll be fine. I just want to have the perfect Christmas. It's the tension.
It's
Christmas.
the tension, and it's those relationships between the sort of the in-laws, the cousins you rarely see, the parents that are just like, I'm just going to get drunk. Like, is it Ellen's mother, the redhead that's just constantly got a cocktail and a cigarette in hand in every scene.
I can't tell you how many times that we had to cut the top off the Christmas tree because it just didn't quite fit in the living room.
John's like,
really
trust me,
it's really full.
I worked at Slaley. I know where the good ones are. Come on, you take the car. Nobody's gonna miss it. I'm not paying for those overpriced trees down at the lot. I can't. That resonates with me. I'm like walking the streets of Paris and like, do we get a sad? This is where it's at. It's like, do we get a sad, depressing tree that I have to put on top of a cabinet for like €49, or do we get like what I would call a Christmas tree for €80? Or do we get a fake one? And he's like, it's sustainable. And he's like, yeah, but in that case, I'm going to build one out of Lego. It's like, come on. So
is that when you turn into Clark Griswold and you're like, no, Jules, this is what our forefathers did. You have to get a proper tree.
Like there are extremes in this film, but you do. Some of it does resonate. It's obviously 80s. I think some of it is like nostalgia. Like, oh, I remember when people used to talk on phones, and they were going through problems that resonate with the 80s. But I think what I was saying to George, because I don't know why, but this will show you what this film means to our family. For some reason, I watched this with my dad over the summer. Right? That I hope speaks volumes. Now, maybe it's not some. I don't know when I was over. I think
it was late August. It was like it was end of August.
It was like so late summer, like really the end of August, and like I was going through there. It's like there was. Like it sounds ridiculous to say there was nothing on Netflix. There's nothing on any of the streaming sites. It was like, let's see what you've got in the drawer. And I was like, do you want to watch this? He's like, oh yes, get this on. And so I've watched this twice. I watched this again, obviously in preparation for this episode. But yeah, I don't know. It's as James said, it's a nice film to put on when you're getting in the mood for Christmas because I don't know, getting all the kids. Come on, let's get in the Christmas mood. Look, okay, and this bit here, you see, look. That's Bruce Willis shooting the guy through the table. So, I mean, there's Christmas movies and there's Christmas movies.
But I think that's what this film taps into, that other films are set around Christmas and it's more about, yes, the spirit of Christmas. But this specifically, and it goes back to what James is saying, it pulls apart those Christmas traditions of like the fact that Clark wants that perfect Christmas. And there's so many things that you do relate to. Like, I can't help thinking whenever I see a staple gun of this film, of him doing the lights. And I don't know if it was the same with you guys, but Charlie and I, that was our job when we got to like our teenage years. Dad would be like, right, boys, you put up the Christmas lights. Here's a staple gun, see you in a few hours. And literally like us, like between us, like managing
I have stapled a glove. I've definitely stapled a glove at least once. I could feel its pain.
And going through the wire. That's a typical thing.
So I went into the attic yesterday and putting the ladders up into the attic. And just happens that my ladders are the ladders that just happen to slide up and down. And all I ever picture when I'm on these ladders is Clark sliding down the ladder.
Or that thing of opening the attic, John, and just being hit straight in the face
absolutely.
as well.
But I'm glad you mentioned it. Let's talk about what I think is the MVP of this character. And it's not his acting, it's his comedy acting. Chevy Chase, for his slapstick, it's like we had Ben Stiller in like the 90s to give us but like this is because watching this film twice in the last technically 4 months. What stood out to me, I was watching his performance and like there's the bit where he gets totally unhinged at the end, which we can get to, but his slapstick comedy throughout is like he's taking hits like there's no tomorrow. It's impressive. It's Saturday Night Live type level for me.
Watching some of his facial reactions are just absolutely fantastic.
Crazy eyes.
I think it's a real tour de force. And I know, I hinted on it with when I was talking about Chris Columbus, that Chevy Chase is legendary, well known as a difficult person to work with. I think both him and Bill Murray can be very difficult, but I think Chevy Chase particularly has like a reputation of being, I don't know whether he's up himself or he just rubs up the wrong way. But when I was reading the sort of the retrospectives on this with the cast and crew, all of them, like particularly the guys at Johnny Galecki, who plays Rusty, who would go on to become, one of the main guys in Big Bang Theory. He has nothing but praise for him, saying, he really took him under his wing. He taught him like comic timing, because obviously it was like, I think, his first film role. So a lot of people had constant praise for Chevy Chase on this film, but yeah, he is the MVP in this. And there's, as you say, Charlie, there's so much like physical comedy. There's the whole bit where he's talking to the girl at the lingerie counter and he's just falling apart. It's brilliant. And then there's all the awkward bits with his boss, the CEO.
Greaseball. That's Bill Murray's brother. Bill
Brian Doyle Murray. And I've watched this film, probably 20 times at least. But watching it the other night, I saw something new, which is when he brings the gift to Brian Doyle Murray, gift from the family. I've never noticed that all the gifts in the background, it's all the same gift. Everyone's bought the same gift for him.
That's what I love about this film, though, is that actually every time you watch it, you notice something different that you didn't notice. There's quite a lot of hidden things on there that make it so funny, or little snippets that it just make you laugh this time that you missed last time around. Because there's so much happening. There is a lot going on.
Well, that's it. It's like when they're in the Walmart or whatever, and Eddie's just putting in different bags of dog food. It just seems to be nothing but dog food.
It's crushing all the glasses, isn't it? That he's already put underneath.
Oh my God, we have to have a segment for Cousin Eddie, because there's that whole thing. You don't realize the bit that they're doing. Like the lights are on, and he's thanking each member of the family, and like after he's done it like with his mum and his dad, and like, where's this going? And then it ends with, house looks real nice, Clark. And then they turn it up a notch. And I think for me, this resonates with the type of film. I think this is why our dad and our parents love these films so much, is I think it borrows from other eras. I think that whole thing of like, get the family together, get them into the house. This idea that the weird cousin turns up, it's no surprise my dad loves these sort of comedies. Like there's these series that have been on mainly British terrestrial television, The Worst Weekend of My Life, where the guys, it just falls apart. My dad loves that. And I think it's about a different era. And the fact they bring it into this film that he's having a bad time and then Cousin Eddie turns up, and as George is just talking about, I'm thinking about that scene in Walmart where it's like, we'd like to get the kids presents, and then he pulls out the pre-prepared list. Well, no, we couldn't accept, Clark, but in fact, and then he tops it all off with and you know what, Clark? I'd like to get you something really, really nice. I mean, you're paying for it. I just love that. It's like, I don't know if John Hughes is doing the comedy writing, or there's definitely some improv. But
there's got to be some
Randy
improv
Quaid and Chevy Chase are having a great time.
I think that's part of why it's so appealing, though, is that it reaches to lots of different generations. There's something funny for all members of the family. It's not targeted at a set audience, and that's what makes it so much fun for the whole family to sit and watch it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's it. When it comes to family, there's some stuff that you really want to say, but out of like obligation, you have to be like as polite as possible. And that's it. Like Eddie is pushing it to that extreme where he's they're drinking the eggnog. And James, I remember you and I like chatting about this. He's just like, can I refill your eggnog, Eddie? Take you out in the middle of nowhere, leave you for dead. And he's just destroying everything. And the one thing, again, I think I have noticed this on previous watches, but it might be like the DVD, that enhanced resolution, but Eddie's outfit in that scene where he's clearly wearing, it's just like a cutoff of a roll neck underneath his
I'm still saving up every year to buy myself a blue leisure suit.
Oh my God, what he's wearing when it's like, have you come from an Elvis convention? But like, he's totally dolled up, and you just see that, I don't know, like it shows his acting prowess. Like Randy Quaid, like both when he rocks, George and I, we covered Independence Day. Was it the start of this year or the start of last year? We covered that recently. Like he turns up and it's like, he's always in a different film to everybody else. He's like, I'm here, Clark. It's like he raises it. He really does raise it. And well, I wouldn't say you can't have too many MVPs, but like his wife in this, what's she called? Maria,
she's brilliant.
She's in all of them. There's her and
Beverly D'Angelo, I think it is.
Yeah.
But she's amazing. The fact that she's she has to put up with him, and when he's being ridiculous, she's like, well, Clark, she's the voice of reason.
And he's like, Ellen, when have I ever overreacted?
So yeah, it does. What's funny about these films is it plays in the tropes. I think we all discovered this film when we were probably growing out of our parents. So we probably didn't get all the jokes now, but now it kind of resonates more. And what's funny is there's a colleague of mine, Rasmus, he's a Danish guy. And you imagine, there's the language transfer. And he's like, best film ever. It's like for him, it's his favorite Christmas film. He might correct me on that, but like to me, he loves Naked Gun. And he's like, yeah, this Naked Gun and Christmas Vacation, it's his Christmas film. That's what he watches. So it's like it transcends. It goes. I think for the slapstick comedy, for the delivery of it, it's mixed with the shit is full, the sewage stuff, and it really does turn it up at the end. I think it's got a very good. I think it's very much more than say the other vacation films of it all falling apart. This seems to have a bit of an act 3. It's like, we've got to bring this all together. There's got to be that scene with Brian Doyle Murray and his wife and the police dancing. It's the 80s.
See, one of the things I really struggle with, and they're going to kill me for saying it, but every time I watch Clark Griswold, I just think he's AKA Patrick Feeney.
That's why it resonates. Yeah.
And I can just picture Patrick standing up there and saying, kids, we're putting in a tennis court.
No, I've booked it in.
I've been on holiday. Yeah, we're okay to play Charlie. We're good.
But,
I think we got more use out of it than they did. But yeah, Clark just reminds me of Patrick in the fact that I think Patrick always envisioned the perfect Christmas at the Feeney household, and it was always something went wrong.
Well, it's that endless optimism, isn't it? It's like, it's fine, we can salvage it. It's slightly burnt, but it's fine. It's fine.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's what I mean. From what on my two viewings of this, the thing that resonated me watching this again was the whole episode of Clark losing his shit, because it is like we know a bit more about psychology now. It's quite a long episode, isn't it? Like him losing his stuff is like. He gets angry and then he goes on rampage. He's got the chainsaw and he's taken out the banister and he's doing stuff. So it's like, but it's an interesting thing. It's like he's had enough, but then it goes to another level. It's an interesting place that they go to.
Yeah, and it's almost like, as you say, it has to culminate with like Eddie has to go that one step further to almost diffuse Clark of like, well, at least I'm not as crazy as Eddie.
Yeah,
I'm not going to kidnap my boss. Even though I talked about it.
Not that crazy, but great performance from Brian Doyle. Should we talk about the Yuppies?
I was going to say...
it's the most quotable line out of this film is the Christmas tree line.
James would never forgive me if we hadn't talked about Todd and Margot.
So this would have been at the height of Seinfeld, I'm guessing, for her to get a role in this.
I think Seinfeld
it would have been a
little bit. I think it was around the same time, but I think Seinfeld was probably early 90s, maybe. She's still popping up. She popped up in Black
Winter
Panther.
Soldier,
and she's in. Well, no, she's in the recent Marvel stuff. So. Yeah, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, she's carved a career for herself. But yes, Todd and Margot as the Yuppies, and obviously it was quite. Charlie, you and I have chatted about this before, like especially with Trading Places. We've talked about other Todd, all those Yuppies. It was quite a.
But isn't it funny that they? But I wanted to mention Trading Places, the fact that they had some time to think about this Yuppie couple. They write them, they narrate them. And in both Trading Places and in this film, it's like the yuppie guys called Todd, Margot.
They're just trying to live their own lives and are constantly disrupted by Clark's madness.
My favorite bit's the bit with the lights, because I know it builds, and there's a few lines and stuff, but the comedy in the bit where they keep turning the lights on and off, and they're just ruining their evening. And she goes over there, and then there's the stuff with the squirrel. There's a bit of an overreaction to a squirrel. The people of Stocksfield would react differently to a squirrel than the people of Chicago, wherever they are.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't know what else there is to say about this film. I think we've covered the highlights. Is there anything else you guys want to say about Christmas Vacation? Because George is probably going to give us. Is there any? There might be some coulda, woulda, shoulda. But before we go there, is there anything else you want to say about this film that we haven't talked about?
You got a lot of nerve talking to me like that, Griswold. I wasn't talking to you.
Honestly, comedy genius. Just genius delivery and everything. I love that line.
I think we've kind of covered why it still holds up. I think just in terms of there's so many of the Christmas traditions and the Christmas tropes that we can all relate to. And as you say, Charlie, like, especially as we get older, and we're more like growing into that man of the house.
Come over here. Come on, sit at our place. It's about Christmas. It's about coming together. Why did I invite everybody over? Why?
How many people have we invited over?
Why did I think this would be okay?
Yeah.
I think it's as well the fact that the fact it was made in 1989 and our kids today still love it and really enjoy it. That shows that it's been a great movie. And the fact that you can watch it every year and still enjoy it. There's not many, there's very few movies apart from we could reel off 90 or 100 that we really enjoyed from the 80s.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What I'm not sure about it as a film is that if it was not set at Christmas with the Christmas theme, would it do so well year after year as just a comedy film? Because I think a lot of the appeal comes to the fact that it's set at Christmas, it's very Christmas themed, all the colors are Christmas themed, and it gets you in that Christmas spirit. And if it was just an isolated comedy, would it have stand up now as it has done? I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, what else would you do? Like a wedding?
Well, no,
because they've done two films before that.
I don't have the exact figures of all the films together. I mean, the only figures I have here is like it was made for 25 million. It would go on to gross 72 million, and in Hollywood standards, and that's it's a good, it's successful, but it's not like, as I say, Home Alone, a smash hit. But I think if you looked at the viewing figures of this versus all the other vacation movies, I think this would be way up because of, it's a bit like, this Christmas hit singles. If you get a catchy song, it is going to, every year, people are going to be, oh, let's put that on. It's comforting, it's reassuring. And I think, trying to allude to earlier in the chat, I think this is a nicer film than some of the other vacation movies that, again, a lot of the humor is directed at the zaniness of Clark and the family. But I think because it's so isolated for the Christmas setting, they're immediate, and they're not going on a road trip. I think maybe that's what makes it so easily to rewatch and easy viewing.
But all the things that happen throughout the film are all things that we all do every year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what makes it so relatable, isn't it, to your everyday life and what we experience at Christmas. And you kind of, I still, when I'm putting up the lights or putting the tree up, you trying your best not to make a mess of it because you've seen it.
Oh yeah.
You're trying to do it quickly. You're trying to do it quickly. Like, well, I could move the ladders, or I could just reach over here. And I mean, we joke about this, but I think my dad did this a few years ago where he was, I don't know if it was Christmas or whatever, but he was on ladders. Imagine up near their bedroom, 2 floors up. And he's like, and he just tried to jump across. Ambulances were called. Yes, I mean, yeah, we've all had our Clark Griswold moments, and I think we may have more to come.
And I can guarantee you, if we had a McGee Glendinning get together now and both the dads were there, about 2:00 in the afternoon, they'd both be sat in the chair snoring with the lips quivering away.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And the dogs would be running riots, chasing each other around the house. So yes, I think that we could easily recreate. Yeah, easily recreate that.
So no, one point I did just want to make there, because we were talking about how this is set at Christmas. James, just to answer your point, this is set at Christmas. The other three aren't. The other three are road trips, and this is the one that kind of resonates. I like Vegas. I like the vacation one was a bit rough. It's I guess it's the original. Yeah. The European Vacation was the one I watched when I was very young, and my dad loved it. And then this was the one, and then this in Vegas for me were like more like what I went through, but this is the one that we're talking about now. So I think the fact they took it away from the road trip and they did it Christmas, maybe it said something about what didn't work in the other ones.
The only thing I was going to say in terms of there is getting into suspicious spin-offs, there is a sequel to this called, I think, Cousin Eddie's Island Getaway or something.
Does Randy Quaid or Chevy Chase feature?
Yes, it's Randy Quaid's in it. No one else from the film is in it. But
I think need it's like, the money.
James, John, have either of you seen it, being completists?
No, I haven't actually.
I'm going to have to...
Existed.
I'm going to have to look up the official title, but
of course the other actress in this who ended up being a big star was Juliette Lewis.
This was like her peak to stardom. Of early 90s, she just exploded.
Do you guys remember when an actress like her, it would be like in the trailer, be like, and introducing. That's how she would have been because she was so young. It's like, you've never seen her before. Introducing Juliette Lewis. Who was the one to star in, many films.
National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation 2, also known as National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation 2, Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure, is a 2003 American made-for-television comedy film.
4 years later, people.
No, that's...
14 years later.
14 years later, Charlie.
Oh, wow. Sorry, I can't count.
So, yes, that's something. And there's also the Vacation remake. I don't know if you guys saw that.
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that. And very much on the same theme as the early ones, to be honest.
Yeah, it was okay. It wasn't like...
Have you guys seen We're the Millers? Because I haven't. And I'm like thinking, is there anything that compares to this that's come out recently that's any good? Because I haven't seen We're the Millers. I don't know.
We're the Millers is enjoyable.
It's okay.
It has got some good laughs in it. I would recommend that.
It's got Jennifer Aniston in her underwear. I enjoyed that.
Well, there you go. That has got some good awkward bits in it because they are pretending to be a family so they can smuggle drugs, I think, across the border, but they're obviously a fake family. And it's just all the like shenanigans that they get up to. So yeah, no, that's definitely worth a watch.
I like Sudokus.
One of the best comedy films I've seen in recent years is Game Night. Have you guys seen that with Jason Bateman?
Yeah, that's good.
I've not seen that.
Check that out. It is really funny.
Speaking of Bateman, from podcast to podcast, we have to recommend a podcast that George and I have discovered recently with Jason Bateman that I can't even remember the name of.
Smartless.
So it's got, have you guys watched any Arrested Development?
No.
I think you'd like that. I think you'd like that.
That's dysfunctional family. That's
very dysfunctional family. It's got Ron Howard, from Happy Days. Narrating, and it's got this guy, and it is very, it's kind of it's Jason Bateman, but I think why it was so bold was it was one of the first shows that cut the canned laughter. So there's
for American shows anyway.
We're so used to that now. Like, it's weird when we go back, and George and I obviously love our Alan Partridge, and we watch it, and there's all this canned laughter, and anyway, it's like this guy Jason Bateman and one of the other actors from that and another guy from Will and Grace, who I didn't know. They do this podcast, and they did one where they interview. They're obviously got lots of Hollywood chops, so they can get lots of big stars. But they had Ewan McGregor on, and it's pretty good. It's a good podcast. And as podcast bros, got to look out for this podcast bros.
Yeah, we've got to look out for the little people, haven't we, Charlie?
Yeah, we have. We've got to give them a bit of a thumbs up. These poor guys, they're in Hollywood. They're getting screwed by Netflix. They need a lift up from the independent guys.
Guys got to eat. I've got one coulda, woulda, shoulda, and then we'll move on to some questions for the Glendinning brothers.
So coulda, woulda, shoulda is where George enlightens us and tells us which actors, and in some cases directors, were considered for this film, but did not, for whatever reason, get chosen.
So we have already covered the directors that were up and were either too busy or didn't want to work with Chevy Chase. However, from an acting point of view, apparently none other than Leonardo DiCaprio tested for the role of Rusty and was deemed by the casting director as not goofy enough. So There you go. Mr. Beautiful 25-year-old girlfriend, Oscar winner, climate activist Leonardo DiCaprio could have been in this film.
I think you meant to say 24-year-olds.
Sorry, 24-year-olds.
She's 25, she's too old. She's done.
It's like Running Man. They've got these collars when they reach 25 and their heads just explode.
Sorry, baby. I've got to go and save the planet. You're going to have to go now.
Right. So, shall we jump on to some quick fire questions for the brothers Glendenning?
Let's interrogate the Glendennings. Let's do it.
Okay,
who's looking more guilty right now? John looks at ease. James looks guilty.
Okay, so the situation is you're only allowed to watch one Stallone or one Arnie film. What film are you watching and why? So, James, I'll ask you that first.
James, do you want some preamble? Okay, so you're on a sinking ferry. You realize that you're going to die. You can't get out of the room you're in. There's a VHS player. You've got everything in the VHS player. What are you going to watch?
I'm going to have to go back to the roots, and I'll go with Sly, and I'll go with First Blood.
Oh,
survive war. You've got to become
First Blood Part 1.
Part 1. Before it got a bit crazy. Particularly that scene in the woods with all the fight scene, and I think that just every time that film's on now, I still just watch it again and again, and I'd probably pick that one. If it was Arnie, I'd probably be going back to something quite early, similar to that as well. One of his early films, but I'd go with Sly, First Blood.
Nice.
Before we ask John, can I just say that, James, you're the reason why it took me so long to see First Blood Part 1, because I remember you saying to me, no, the first one's crap. The second one, he's got the helicopters and everything.
The second one, he's got an exploding bow and arrow.
So it was, I think I was a student by the time, like 10 years later, before I picked it up, I was like, don't think the first one's very good. And I think we covered it on the podcast. It is obviously cinematically,
it's a different
masterpiece,
different genre,
beast. But I remember, I can almost see myself in your living room go, no, Charlie, no, we're going to put on First Blood. I watched First Blood Part 2 because you're like, no, the first one's boring. It's like the story and character development and backstory and emotion and shit. Whereas in this one, he blows up a helicopter with a bow and arrow. I'm in.
So, John, what are you going to pick? Are you going to go for Arnie and Sly? What film are you picking and why?
There's such a long list. It's really hard to narrow down one. But if it had to be one, because I do watch it whenever it comes on, and I just can't help myself. I think it's because it's so realistic, and you can kind of picture yourself in his position. It's got to be Commando.
Commando. Oh. I knew you were going to say Commando.
And the fact
John.
Any message I ever receive from you boys is always, how's your arm, John?
But seriously, how is your arm, John?
Very sore.
If Matrix would be here, he'd be laughing too.
What I loved when George and I covered on the podcast, George did this whole preamble talking about, what the director had done and Arnie's career, and then just set off the cuff, and probably just one of the best action movies ever made. And it is, because if you like action movies, you've got to realize that they're a bit ridiculous. They're a bit silly, especially 80s. And this is the best. This is the most ridiculous, the most nonsense. And it's like, just what are you going to do with a Porsche? I'm just going to roll it. I'm just going to roll it over. What a film!
I don't know how you can say it's ridiculous. I mean, for 100 people to be shooting at one man and none of them hit him, and he'd take them all out. I mean, this could happen.
Well, John, just to jump back to Rambo, First Blood Part 2. Apparently, the makers saw Rambo came out whilst they were making Commando, and the producer apparently said, we've got to have a bigger dick than Rambo. We've got to kill more people.
But that's why James, we used to love that bit where he just goes in the shed and he starts getting the lawnmower sorted out. That was the Rambo effect, apparently. They were like,
got to kill more people.
We need more bodies.
Dress up more stuntmen.
But he hasn't got any weapons left. Go to the shed. Plenty of weapons in the shed.
Yeah. They've all got machine guns and grenades. You'll be fine.
I think there was some cut version. We were always looking out for that. Oh yeah, this is, we were talking about the ITV the dubbing, but there was stuff they cut in the first. Oh, it's not in this version. Why? What's missing? Well, in the other version, he gets the sword through the head. Oh, we missed that. Never mind.
As he's shooting the other 100 guys that are trying to hit him, they must have been playing the same game as we used to play, which was how do you want to die? Because you'd have that pause where they decide how they were going to fall down.
If you've ever played that murder game where you can kill but you're not allowed to reveal it, soon look. I think this is why, like, people would probably look at the scary movie films and say, why do people enjoy them? But like when Hot Shots came out, we were like, we'd been through the whole Rambo and Top Gun stuff, so we enjoyed the nostalgia and the fact what they were poking fun at. But like, I think it tapped into that immaturity. It's something that comes up a lot on Retro Rambles, that because George and I made the almost fatal error of dissing Tango and Cash. We're like, this film's ridiculous. It went through direct as hell. How could anybody, and then we forgot that there were probably 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds going out to watch this film with their mates. And they're like, that's one of the best action movies we've ever seen. And we were 7 or 8 when we watched these films. So we still have that sort of mentality to this genre. And I think we don't want to disrespect, but come on, we were kids. We shouldn't have been allowed to watch it, but we could. So we did.
I think it's part of the problem when you're a film fanatic. Films literally, rule your life. I was in the car the other day and Dream Lover by Bobby Darin came on, and all I could think of was Charlie Sheen on his motorbike with the woman on the horse from Hot Shots.
Well, that's it. Like, so many Christmas songs are informed by, like, I know, like, James, you and I like chatting about, is it, Christmas, sort of the opening of as a Gremlins and stuff like that. And obviously, Jingle Bell Rock with Lethal Weapon. So many of like the classic Christmas songs, like, oh, where's this from? Oh, it's from that film, and it's from that film. But yeah, it's sort of like, as Charlie always says, like muscle memory.
Yeah, you hear the song. Sometimes you'd like, did I hear the song before I watched the movie, or did I discover the song because of the movie? And it's probably the latter.
Yeah.
So talking about Christmas movies, we've got you guys on. It's Christmas. I mean, Bruce Willis drew a line in the sand and said, I think, when was it, George? He defined Die Hard as a Christmas movie. But for all said and done, what's your Christmas movie that's not typically a Christmas movie? How could I phrase that better, George?
Obviously, there's the stuff like Die Hard and Lethal Weapon that are action movies set at Christmas. But I think the question that we are phrasing, like, what film do you like to watch at Christmas that isn't a Christmas film? It has no connections to Christmas. So, for example,
used to be on the TV when we were young. Maybe had a cartoon before it.
Raiders of the Lost Ark or something like that, or a Star Wars. Obviously we grew up in a time of film premieres on TV around Christmas. There was the big Christmas movie. So are there any films that you associate with Christmas that isn't a Christmas movie?
Yeah, for me, Star Wars: A New Hope. It's still, every time. Just because I think it did used to be played on Christmas Day quite regularly. Didn't it? As a family movie. So that's probably the one that resonates with me the most, I would say, if certainly from my childhood, and I'd still enjoy watching that on Christmas Day now. And I was such a massive Star Wars fan when I was a kid. Obviously, I'm not now because I'm very mature and
I'm a reputable man who has no need for
that's right. Yes,
space operas.
Once you're on the Disney gravy train, they won't let you go. You will be a Star Wars fan for life, John.
That's right. Yeah, and I'm sure the Sarlacc pit is still in our garden.
Beautiful. James, what about you? I mean, I don't know. Does a question, well, for both of you, but James, maybe you can answer this. Is Where Eagles Dare set at Christmas, or is it just because it's in the snow?
Oh, good shout.
Yeah, I think it's just because it's Austria in the snow, George. I'm not sure there's a lot of links to Christmas in that film.
But you would you associate that as a non-Christmassy Christmas film?
I associate it as a bank holiday film rather than a festive Christmas film.
I would agree with James. That's got August bank holiday written all over it. It's like it's the end of the summer. It's getting cold.
I know you know what it is. It's a New Year's Day bank holiday, isn't it?
No. I think you've raised your game. The only thing it does resonate with Christmas is the blood is kind of like so red it could be from Santa's. It could be like applesauce. But that I think I would argue that I remember turning to my dad at one point and saying about is this a Bond film? It's like, no, it's Where Eagles Dare. But it's like a Bond film. It's like, no, it's Where Eagles Dare. So is there another one? It's like, no. So it's not like, because I'd just discovered Bond, because it's, we talked about getting Ray on for that.
I think we might do, yeah.
It's hard to pin him down. He's playing golf. He's only playing golf 6 times a week. So he's a tough man to pin down. But
I'm sure the Schloss Adler is very pretty at Christmas, though.
Oh, beautiful. Actually, John, you joke, but we went on a road trip to like Austria when I think I was about 6 or something, and he took us to see
the fucking
point out,
castle.
Boys,
no, there it is.
That's a castle from Where Eagles Dare.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
and I bet your first comment was, where are the cable cars?
Exactly, where are the cable cars?
Dad, I was having a tantrum until I got sticks of dynamite with timers on them, because these are just like, how practical. It's like 15 minutes, just turn it around. So safe. Child toy. I think we've covered everything. George, is there anything else we need to cover in terms of, we've got the boys on here. We've talked about Christmas films, non-Christmassy films.
I'd probably say if I was going to pick one that I like to watch in December that's not necessarily Christmas, it would probably be Uncle Buck.
Nice.
We haven't covered that on the podcast or watched that for a while. We were talking about this earlier, George and
I don't think we've covered any John Candy. I don't think we've
been doing this for 5 years. We never covered John Candy, and that is sacrilege. Because
the great outdoors. You've got to cover the great outdoors.
I know there's great outdoors. There's train, planes, and automobiles. I know is that based around Thanksgiving weekend? So sort of.
So what we've just passed,
yeah.
Is that John Hughes? Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's John Hughes. Yeah. So I think
the great outdoors. I'll race you home. best line, the best closing line, and he's just going.
I haven't watched that. That's been on. I think it's on Netflix. That's been on my Netflix watch list for ages. I need to revisit that because I haven't seen it in years. Great Outdoors.
Yeah, it's a good, and that's another one actually my kids really enjoy. Interesting, is obviously an older film that my kids love that film.
Nice one. Well, yeah, I definitely.
I'm very happy to hear, John, that you're indoctrinating your children slowly but surely.
Good use of the word, Charlie. Good use of the word.
They didn't have a choice. They had no choice whatsoever.
Netflix is down again, Daddy. Yes. Yes, it is. What does that mean? It means we're watching Raiders of the Lost Ark, then Empire Strikes Back. It's okay. There's similarities. You'll be fine.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's why we have to have 4 TVs at home so everyone can watch their own thing.
Now you're tapping into that great line from Vegas Vacation that our family used. So everyone's having alone days.
That's right.
Thing is, I think we discovered this film like when we were in our teens or something. And I can remember being on a family holiday. We're like, I'm going to have an alone day. It's a brilliant term for a family holiday. It's like, screw you guys. I've had enough of this family. Awesome. Okay. Well, I think we've had some great chats. It's been great to have you guys on. We'd love to have you back, hopefully before our 200th episode, because I don't want to wait that long. It's
and there's plenty more Van Damme movies in the list that we haven't covered yet.
What Van Damme films have we not covered? Actually, no. Let's rephrase that question. If we were to invite you guys on, because we kind of dragged you on for a Christmas episode because it was number 100 and we kind of forced Christmas Vacation on, what would you like to cover? Both of you.
Do I call it Absent Without Leave or Lionheart?
Or should we just do a JCVD mashup? Should we just do a thing where we get you on and we just do the best of JCVD?
Oh, well, we haven't done AWOL. Double Impact, that has been requested a few times.
Classic.
And I think as it's all about...
We haven't done Kickboxer.
We haven't done Kickboxer. So there you go. We did Bloodsport and Hard Target as a double bill, didn't we?
That was fun.
And we've done Universal Soldier. And we did Cyborg as one of our revelations.
Have you guys watched Cyborg recently?
Not recently.
Oh no!
God!
Because you advised us back in the day of don't watch it.
You said don't watch it. Or maybe it was Jamie. I'm gonna have to get Jamie on. But I think one of these no, it's terrible. It's terrible. Either you or Jamie said. Not Universal Soldier, no, Cyborg. So Universal Soldier with Dolph Lundgren is great.
Is that not Van Damme as well in Universal Soldier?
Yeah. So that's Van Damme. But Cyborg was this B movie that he pops up in.
And that's being generous. It's more like a C movie.
I've seen it, yes. God, I must have watched that then for a long time.
Yeah,
it's
don't bother,
seriously turn-offable.
I did watch Death Warrant recently, and I watched it and thought, I'm sure that was a lot better when I watched it at the time before.
Well,
actually, I had no frame of reference.
I was going to say, one of the ones we haven't seen that we had lined up for our revelations as well is the one that's Die Hard in a hockey rink. What's it called? Sudden Death. We haven't watched that. Death. Yeah, so that's another one we need to add on the list. But yeah,
last Saturday night, films were really poor on TV, and I ended up at 12:30 watching Delta Force 5 with good old Chuck, and that still hasn't got any better.
See, the thing is, John, I've only ever seen Delta Force 4, and I can remember watching it going, it was on TV, and I was like, I haven't watched the other 3, and I think I was of the age where I was like, probably doesn't matter. And after I watched the 4th one, I didn't go back and watch the other one. So
all I can remember about Delta Force is on one of them, maybe it's all of them, he has rocket launchers on his bike.
I think that's part of the course.
What's not to like?
Exactly, and I was sold. So
that is Christmas Vacation. That is our 100th episode, and what better way to celebrate it than to have the Glendinning brothers on. I just want to say a very big thank you to you both. Thank you, John. Thank you, James. John, have you enjoyed your time on Retro Ramble?
It's been all right. No, I'm joking. No, it's been great. Great to catch up with you both. And we'll definitely have to get together in person. And you realise kind of how many fond memories we had as kids, and we obviously spend so much time together. So it's been fantastic to catch up and talk about one of our favourite films.
Like it was yesterday. James, great to have you on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been thoroughly enjoyable, and what a fantastic choice of film for us to make our debut with. And I always think it's lovely to have these films that have so much memory and joy, that are not necessarily critically acclaimed films, but bring so much joy, and they will be forever be a staple on the shelf to watch every single year.
Well, you chose the film, James, so we had to go with it. But I'm glad you're happy with your choice. No, it's been awesome speaking to you both, and very special for George and I, isn't that right, George?
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's been long overdue, and it's been so great to have you guys on. But as you say, John, it's just been so great to reminisce as well.
Indeed.
Thanks, guys.
Great. Well, for all you lovely listeners out there, thank you for listening. Check us out on all the social channels. We've got a blog. I think it's retroramble.blog. We've got Patreon. Want to show some support. It's always appreciated. There's some extra episodes there. And we will be back in the new year. Is that not right, George? Can we tell them what we're doing next, or we're just going to leave them?
I think we've got down, I'm going to surprise you on this, because I think we had one film in the frame, but I think we're going to do Inner Space. So
I'm into that.
Yeah, because someone on our Patreon requested it, and I thought it's a great film. I haven't seen it in a while. Let's do it. Great 80s.
It's got Bennett.
It has got Bennett in it. It has. So
thinking about to house your arm, John. Yeah, it's gone full circle. So I'm happy with that. We've got John Glendinning, we've got Bennett. It's a tangent. It's a segue. Let's do it.
But we also will be covering on our Patreon channel for Christmas. We'll be doing Cobra with Stallone as a revelation.
A film that we've never seen.
Yeah,
never seen it.
No.
You guys seen it?
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
John, thoughts? Give it in the sentence. Cobra, go.
It's not one of his greatest hits. Sorry, I've been really too polite now.
So we've got that to look forward to. And obviously we've been chatting a long while with the Glendinning brothers, so we'll probably put extra footage on the Patreon channel because we've been talking for so long.
Yeah, no, definitely, we're going to have to cut this puppy down. There's just too many golden nuggets of chat and bands. So, gentlemen, thank you for this episode. I have mainly been a crazy 40-year-old dad like Chevy Chase, Charlie McGee.
I've been George McGee.
We've had
the Glendinning brothers.
James and John.
We've had John and we've had James. Thank you guys. And we'll see you at 150, 200. Don't know what diaries will allow, but we look forward to having you back on the podcast very, very soon.
And Merry Christmas.